প্রিয় দর্শক, আপনাদের সবাইকে স্বাগত জানাচ্ছি টাইম টেলিভিশনের নিয়মিত সাপ্তাহিক অনুষ্ঠান ল অ্যান্ড ইমিগ্রেশন উইথ সালেম এস রিজভীতে। আপনারা জানেন এই অনুষ্ঠানটির মধ্য দিয়ে আমরা বিভিন্ন আইন বিষয়ক প্রশ্নের জবাব দিয়ে থাকি। আমাদের অনুষ্ঠানের অতিথি, নিয়মিত অতিথি সালেম এস রিজভী, অ্যাটর্নি অ্যাট ল, তিনি আপনাদের সামনে প্রতি সপ্তাহে উপস্থিত থাকেন। যথারীতি আজকেও রয়েছেন। চলুন আমরা শুরু করি আমাদের আজকের অনুষ্ঠান। ওয়েলকাম ব্যাক মিস্টার সালেম এস রিজভী।
Well, thank you very much for having me.
How are you? How is everything?
Very good, wonderful. I mean, we are getting some good news from U.S. Congress, especially on
Right.
immigration. I mean, the major concern was whether Congress is going to approve the funding for immigration services. So at least that issue is resolved.
Right,
And
right.
now the funding has been granted. We are set till September 30th. And after that, we have to see whether funding is going to be
Right,
available.
everybody
or not.
was
Yeah,
anxious,
yeah.
so at least, there is some release.
Absolutely.
know.
I mean, it was unnecessary.
Right.
To begin with. It was something which could have been avoided, but unfortunately, because of political differences, Mr. John Boehner thought he wants to play in a very difficult way, and then he thought perhaps he would be able to create more trouble for President Obama, but he did not succeed in doing it because there was a lot of pressure coming on him from the Senate. And for a good reason, because Mitch McConnell, Majority Leader, he made it very clear that we cannot afford this kind of rift. And Republican Party within itself was having a lot of issues on this issue. So I'm glad that Speaker John Boehner came to his senses. And but again, I mean, the conservative group is still
Working on it,
still
how
working
to,
on it. Exactly. I mean, their policies are super anti-immigrant.
Immigrant.
They want to create a situation where immigrant would say, "Fine, we don't want to live in this country and we want to leave," but that's not going to happen.
Right.
People.
This is
who-
immigrant country. We need
people,
immigrants.
absolutely, it's a land of opportunity. It's a country of immigrants. People came from all over the world, and those are our values.
Right.
And these values must be preserved, and these values must be honored. And so that issue is over. Lots of telephone calls are received about the Obama executive action.
Action, right. We
issue.
talk about a
You know,
lot in our program
yeah,
as well.
yeah. We tried to cover it in the previous programs. But there's some development. Obviously, Justice Allen is not going to budge on this issue. He has taken a position. Remember, the preliminary injunction was
Right.
issued in
Texas,
in January of 14th January, if I'm not mistaken, right? And then right after that, the appeal was submitted, which is underway right now. But the Fifth Circuit Court is going to hear this argument on May 4th. So our eyes are on that date, and we're going to see what the federal court says, and after that, we'll be in a position to dissect this issue in a better way.
yeah, that's all news from about immigration. প্রিয় দর্শক, আপনারা দেখছেন আমাদের অনুষ্ঠান, নিয়মিত অনুষ্ঠান সালেম এস রিজভী উপস্থিত থাকেন এই অনুষ্ঠানটি প্রতি সপ্তাহে, ল অ্যান্ড জাস্টিস, এবং এই অনুষ্ঠানটিতে আপনারা সরাসরি ফোন করতে পারেন। ফোন নাম্বারটি আপনারা স্ক্রলে দেখতে পাচ্ছেন নিশ্চয়ই, এবং একই সাথে আপনারা ফোন করতে পারেন সালেম এস রিজভীর অফিসে। অফিস নাম্বারটি আমি বলে দিচ্ছি 21273243336। চলুন আমরা শুরু করি আমাদের মূল আলোচনা। মিস্টার সালেম এস রিজভী, now let's talk about some law and immigration.
Sure.
So there is a rumor, and actually people, this is very popular, that K1 visa versus green card. People have
Different
view on
concept
it,
about
and
that, yeah.
people are thinking that if they apply for K1 visa for their spouse, that will be faster. What do you think, and what is the truth, actually?
I think you pointed it out in your the way you said it.
Right.
People who are going back to their native countries and getting married there, as long as they're U.S. citizen, sometimes people think that if they apply K1 visa for their spouses, perhaps they would be able to bring them faster. But as you said, if they are married, all right, and then we're using the term spouses,
You're right.
then they cannot bring them on K1. And the reason is because K1 is a fiancé visa.
Fiancé visa,
All right?
right.
So let me give you an example. If a U.S. citizen goes back to his native country or any other country, all right, and where he's involved in a engagement,
Right.
okay, the engagement is done, he comes back and file the application which is called K1 fiancé visa, okay. But if person is already married, nikah, for instance, is
It's done.
okay. Now that person is not a fiancé any longer. It's a marital relationship. So in that kind of situation, he has to file for I-130 petition. Okay, and now the question is not whether K1 is faster or K1 is slower. Rather, the question is what kind of relationship they are getting engaged in. If it is simply engagement, all right, then it's not a marriage case.
It's fiancé.
Obviously, they have no other option but to apply for K1. And if somebody has already been married, then K1 cannot be used. And by the way, the difference of time is not that substantial. But I have seen many people making this mistake because they think that they can bring their spouses on K1 faster and then misrepresent themselves, because when the spouse appear for the interview at U.S. Embassy, they will ask them, are you married? No, I'm not married. But in fact, that person is
Right.
married. And if they catch that person lying, misrepresenting this basic fact, then obviously they make them wait for a very, very long period of time. So it's not worth taking this kind of risk and making a false statement in hope of saving couple of months.
Right.
But in certain areas, the time difference is not that substantial. For instance, we are in New York. When we filed the application for a New York-based applicant, the application go to Vermont Service Center. Now, the difference is minimal. I mean, approximately it is taking 5 months for I-130 petition to approve, and 5 months for K1.
Right.
Okay. Let's say I'm a U.S. citizen and my spouse is in Bangladesh and I want to file for her. I file the application, which is called the basic application is I-130 petition, which goes to Vermont Service Center.
Right.
Vermont Service Center will take approximately 5 months to approve the application. Once the application is approved, it will be sent over to National Visa Center.
And VZ.
And nowadays, National Visa Center is taking approximately 2 months. And it's very important to submit the right kind of papers.
Right.
If right kind of papers are not submitted, then National Visa Center will send a letter, and they will take another 6 months.
It'll delay.
Or another 6
ultimately,
months.
right.
It could. There are substantial delays, and then the case will be sent over to U.S. Embassy in Dhaka, which could take another 2 months or so.
Right.
So the total time period is less than a year for K1 and less than a year for permanent residency. So there's no point in creating a false case and trying to bring your spouse on K1. So I would strongly advise our viewers not to do that, because I have seen many cases where mistakenly or on the basis of bad advice, because a lot of people who are not attorneys, but they claim to be attorneys, and they give out wrong kind of advice. And some people are very innocent; they don't understand what they're doing. If somebody tells them, look, I can file the application and bring your spouse faster, they will go for it because people want to see their spouses, husband or wife, as soon as possible back here so they can restart their lives. So, but it's just a bad idea to make any kind of misrepresentation. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your information. You always explain very good. Let me talk to my viewer.
Sure.
প্রিয় দর্শক, আপনারা যেমনটি শুনছিলেন, সেলিম এস রিজভী অত্যন্ত গুরুত্বপূর্ণ একটি বিষয় কিন্তু বললেন। সেটি হচ্ছে যে K1 ভিসা ভার্সেস গ্রিন কার্ড। আমরা সাধারণত যারা বাংলাদেশ থেকে আসি এবং বিয়ে শাদী করবার পর সাধারণত ওয়াইফকে, স্পাউসকে দেশ থেকে আনার একটা সবারই ইচ্ছে থাকে যে খুব তাড়াতাড়ি যেন আমরা নিয়ে আসতে পারি। তো সেই ক্ষেত্রে অনেকেই যেই ভুলটি কমনলি করে থাকেন সেটা হচ্ছে K1 ভিসা অ্যাপ্লাই করে থাকেন, যেটি হচ্ছে ফিয়ান্সে ভিসা। কেউ যদি বিয়ে করে থাকে তাহলে কিন্তু বিয়ে হয়ে গেল, কাবিননামা হয়ে গেল, তাহলে কিন্তু সেটা আর ফিয়ান্সে না। তো সেই ক্ষেত্রে যদি ফিয়ান্সে ভিসার অ্যাপ্লাই করা হয় সেটা কিন্তু এক ধরনের লাইং। এবং তাতে করে বরঞ্চ আরও ডিলে হবে বিষয়টি, সেটি না করে বরঞ্চ I-130 সেলিমাস রিজভী যেমনটি বলছিলেন, এর প্রসেসিং টাইম লেস দ্যান এ ইয়ার, 8 মান্থ অ্যাকচুয়ালি। তো এই বিষয়টি আমাদের সবসময় সতর্ক থাকতে হবে এবং আমরা সবসময় এই অনুষ্ঠানটির মধ্য দিয়ে বিভিন্ন আইন বিষয়ক সচেতনতা সৃষ্টি করতে চাই আপনার দর্শকদের জন্য। এবং আপনারাও যে কোনো মুহূর্তে আপনাদের যে কোনো প্রশ্ন করতে পারেন সরাসরি আমাদের স্টুডিওতে। প্রিয় দর্শক, আমরা ছোট্ট একটা বিরতি নিচ্ছি এই পর্যায়ে। বিরতির পর আমরা আবারও ফিরে আসছি, ততক্ষণ আমাদের সঙ্গেই থাকুন।
For the best threading, waxing, facial, color, haircuts, henna, special bridal and party makeup, and more, come to Tenzin Salon, corner of Broadway and 72nd Street in Jackson Heights.
Hi, I'm Dr. Yvonne Khan. Welcome to Khan's.
Khan's Tutorial is New York's #1 tutorial for Common Core, citywide ELA and math, summer program, SAT, Regents, and the exam for Stuyvesant, Bronx Science, and Brooklyn Tech. Visit any of our 10 locations at Jackson Heights, Astoria, Castle Hill, Parkchester, Brooklyn, Jamaica, Sutphin, Ozone Park, Richmond Hill, and Floral Park.
For higher test scores, send your child to Khan's Tutorial, where we educate for life.
Call today.
প্রিয় দর্শক, আরও একবার স্বাগত টাইম টেলিভিশনের নিয়মিত অনুষ্ঠান ল অ্যান্ড জাস্টিসে। উপস্থিত রয়েছেন অ্যাটর্নি অ্যাট ল সেলিম এস রিজভী, মিস্টার সেলিম এস রিজভী। So there is another question which is also very tricky. What is consummation?
Yeah, very good
What is
question.
that?
It's an excellent question because it goes back to our previous discussion. All right, I have seen cases where U.S. Embassy denied, even though those cases, even though the marriage,
Done.
marriage was done. When we say marriage, especially purely from Islamic point of view, if the nikah was done, okay,
All document
the
is
Maulana
there.
Sahib is there,
Right.
and the vows are exchanged, and nikah is done. But in certain situations, there's something called, groom and bride don't start living together.
Right.
It's just a ceremony. Some people would go and say, okay, fine, I'm doing the nikah, and the boy or the girl come back, and they will say, well, we're going to wait until the green card is done,
Right.
and when the bride or groom arrives here, then they're going to start living together. So the problem we are facing right now is nikah itself is not alone is not enough, right? If only nikah is done, but consummation is not done,
Right.
meaning that bride and groom did not start their life together.
Right.
They
They're
did
not living together.
They're not living together. Okay, if they're not living together, then the case can be denied. It's a very important issue, and a lot of people are facing this question and problem right now.
So most of the immigrant who are from Bangladesh or Pakistan, or
Right.
they go to the country,
Right.
they married, like all documents done, then they come back to the
Right.
country. Most
When
of the
you say-
cases,
when you say married,
right?
now getting married is a very broad concept.
Right.
Okay, so that's why I'm trying to split it in
Right.
two different parts. One is the religious rituals which are performed, whether they're Hindu or Muslim. If they're Muslim,
Right.
then nikah is performed. After the nikah, if they did not start living together,
Right.
then there's an issue.
Okay.
The issue is that the marriage is not consummated as far as the law is concerned, and then the green card can be denied.
Yeah. Okay, so in that point, they have to follow go
Well,
through
the consummation,
Right. Right.
they must start living together
Right.
before the interview.
Right.
I mean, I have seen cases where the nikah was performed and husband or wife came back to the United States.
because they have
live
very
here
short time,
very short period
perform
of time.
all
Yeah. And
religious
sometimes
ceremony.
people have different plans.
Right.
Family have reservation. They say, okay, fine, come here, nikah is done, all right, go back to
When
the
you
United
when you
States.
get the green card or when you apply, then
Yeah,
they will stay
but that's
together.
not a good approach
Right.
because Nowadays, U.S. Embassy is asking that question. Lots
They
of
want to see
people
the
are
picture
facing-
as well, like
Well, yeah.
you know, all family members together.
Pictures could be
and
somehow deceiving,
right,
because when the nikah is done and people are wearing colorful
right,
dresses,
right.
all right. Now, U.S. Embassy staff is going beyond that.
Right.
They say, well, we can see these are a lot of people here.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's
all
a
the
great,
relatives
it's
there.
a great ceremony and all
Mhm.
that. But we want to ask you whether you lived
Right.
together as a husband and wife before you departed Bangladesh. So that becomes a
Right.
very important issue. Yeah.
Thank you again for that. So let's talk about some other issue.
Yeah.
Last program we talked about, you know, mortgage
Right.
and slip and fall.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, all
And-
these issues are very important.
Very
I mean,
important,
you know,
right.
and legal issues, one has to be very careful about them. People are facing all sort of issues in their daily life, and I think the objective of your show is to focus on them
Right.
and sort them out. For instance, bankruptcy. I received few emails today
Mhm.
about Chapter 7 bankruptcy. In one of the emails, the person suspected perhaps Chapter 7 is going to be eliminated altogether. That's just a rumor. I mean, Chapter 7 provides relief to those people who are indebted, who are buried in, under credit card debts. And this is for honest people. I mean, it's not a crime, because some people think, really,
Right.
they think that
It
if they
happened
file-
because it's a lot of struggle, you know,
Yeah.
family, you know, spending.
Right.
It happened always.
Right, and they could happen a lot of
Right.
because of a lot of good reasons.
Right.
You know, nowadays credit cards interest rates are so high.
Mhm.
All right, if you miss one payment, you are penalized.
Right.
You know, $25, $35, $50, and it accumulates. And interest rates, I have seen huge interest rate.
Right.
You know, 18% and 20% and all that. And when people are using this plastic card, sometimes, you know, they are not in the right
Right.
perspective. They will go to go to a shopping mall and start spending money. Sometimes
And don't realize that-
Sometimes, under certain compulsions.
Right.
But if debts are accumulated over a period of time, and the person, for instance, in one situation, let's assume the person has lost his job.
Right.
You know, it's a very difficult economic situation. If that's the situation, then the person can file for bankruptcy to
Okay.
restart his financial life, and the law allows it. But some people think that, you know, bankruptcy is not a good thing. Maybe they can deal with their credit card companies, or perhaps they can find other ways, you know, borrowing money from their friends. I don't think it's a good idea. If somebody is qualified for Chapter 7 bankruptcy,
Why
which
not?
is the simplest,
Right.
exactly, which is the simplest form of bankruptcy, people should apply.
They
And
should
it
take
doesn't-
take that advantage. It is there.
Absolutely. But it's not for those people, you know, who had fraudulent
Yeah, definitely.
behavior.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That, as you mentioned, there is a lot of reason,
Right.
and it's the real story that
Yeah.
people are struggling
Absolutely.
with that.
This is
So-
a good avenue for honest people.
Right.
you
So
know, who
law
struggle-
is that for those people. So
A law
right.
would support them. They would
support them,
provide them
right.
the opportunity to restart their financial life.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good as issue as well. Last week we talked about mortgage issue, and someone called and
Yeah.
he's talking about, you know, when they're going to buy the you know, home.
Yeah.
That time you mentioned that they have to talk with a good lawyer,
Yeah. Yeah.
and also there is other issue like what kind of, you know, home they are buying,
Right.
and also how is that one family house, a two family house,
Right.
and there is lot other you know, tax issue involved with that,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So in that case, to get a good, you know, picture, or
Right.
they should go to the right person
Right.
before buying
Right.
the
Right. Yeah.
home. And do you have any other suggestion when people are going to buy a house?
Well, they should, in addition to legal issues,
Mhm.
obviously the person must make sure that that's the right kind of neighborhood to live in.
Right.
You know, the structure of the house, obviously, survey is a very important thing that has to be looked into. Also, the mortgage issues, mortgage documents are very, very complicated. And I have seen people suffered because of predatory mortgage rates. Sometimes the brokers are not very forthcoming. They would not explain it. Sometimes banks do not explain everything. And people end up signing documents, especially mortgage documents, which does not meet their expectation. You know, I have certain expectation, and I believe that I'm getting X amount of interest. You sign the paper, and then you found out it was not 6%;
Right.
it's 16%.
Or also the interest rate is not fixed. It might.
It can different. The
Could be,
mortgage
it could
rates,
be, right.
there are many issues about mortgage documentation.
Right.
And if you're doing through a broker who has access to many different banks, you know, sometimes some banks are not very forthcoming.
Okay.
You know, these financial institutions have not very transparent. So in that situation, people could be in trouble. So it's a very important to read the mortgage document very carefully. In addition to that, survey must be done. A
Right.
house must be inspected. You know, if somebody has a house which has a lot of termite, it's a potential issue.
Right.
So the engineering part should be taken care of. The construction part should be looked into it, and it's important to make sure that the house is in in good condition.
Right.
Unless you are a handyman and you say, I don't care. You know, I'm
Right.
getting this house for a lot less, and I will spend day and nights, and I will fix this house. That's a different thing. But for a common person, it's very important to make sure that the house is in a good physical structure. Yeah, and again, I mean, legal papers are also very important. When you are signing the documentation, make sure that the documents are prepared properly. They should have access to their lawyers. They should be very open. And they should expect that the lawyer will sit with them and explain each and every part of the agreement, which is very important. If I have seen, to be very honest, I have seen people sometimes who just look for very cheap or inexpensive legal arrangement.
Right.
All right, and it's not a good idea. If you're buying a house which worth $100,000 or $1,000,
It's for a long time.
you know, you're comparing lawyer's fee. Okay, this lawyer is charging maybe $1,200, which is a reasonable fee for one family house, and the other lawyer is charging $700 or perhaps $600. So in order to save a few $100s, if you end up with a lawyer who is not doing his job or her job properly, then the damage could be huge.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always have to go to the right person.
Right. And a
you know,
professional. I mean, you want to
and
make
because-
sure that professional, there are all kind of attorneys, even they're licensed to practice law, and they have attorney at law written with their name. But unfortunately, we have good doctors and bad doctors. We have good
Always.
lawyers and bad lawyers. We have good lawyers and good accountants and bad accountants. So it's important to make sure that
verify.
they're going to the right kind of person. Yeah.
Right. So we have only 2 minutes
Oh,
left.
okay. All right.
So before wrap up,
Ah.
do you want to say something to our viewer? Next week definitely we'll talk about other issue as well.
Right. Yeah. Well, again, I mean, it's a weather-related comment, and in the last show,
Right.
I think I alluded to that, and that is auto accident and slip and fall accident. And some people think that without doing any legal work, maybe they may be able to get some money back. I mean, that's not going to happen. I mean, the legal work must be done. And who is going to do the legal work? A lawyer, all right? And especially in slip and fall accident, there are many different kind of issues come up, and a good lawyer can sort them out. I received a telephone call, for instance, today, and the person was
Right.
telling me that he owns a house and he slipped on the step of his own house, and he wants to start a lawsuit. And I said, whom are you going to sue?
Right.
I said, if it is
Right.
because of your own negligence, so it has a different dimension. If you are living in somebody else's home, all right, and that person have the responsibility to clean up the step, then I can understand that because of the negligence of that person, you suffered this injury. And but this is your own house and you're not taking care of it,
Right.
and you are trying to hold somebody else responsible for that, that's not going to happen.
Okay, thank you. Next program, we want to talk about, homeowner
Surely.
and tenant issue,
That's a
so
great issue.
we'll talk next week.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming to our studio.
No, my pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
প্রিয় দর্শক, আজকে আমরা এখানে শেষ করছি আজকের অনুষ্ঠান। আগামী সপ্তাহে আপনাদের সাথে আবারও দেখা হবে একই সময়ে টাইম টেলিভিশনের পর্দায়। সবাই ভালো থাকুন, সুস্থ থাকুন।